welcome to a new episode of From the Honeycomb, a podcast that creates a spark of positive energy. Here we discuss all things architecture and design, to travel, exploring Vastu Shastra with a modern approach, and I especially love connecting with other like-minded women and sharing their story. I'm your host, Katerina and welcome to From the Honeycomb. So welcome to this week's episode. We are recording live in Utah with my co-host, my husband Jesse, and we are here celebrating Jesse's birthday, and this episode will be all about our time in Zion and Bryce Canyon.
Glad to be back on the show.
We're happy to have you, or I'm happy to have you, I should say. And so this episode, just want to it's kind of an episode for us to have as a memory of this trip, and then also for anyone who is interested in going to Zion and Bryce Canyon in Utah in the United States. Just some tips, tricks, things we've learned the last few days. And also this episode is in case you're interested about our trip, because I will be posting about it on social media. It's kind of an all-encompassing episode.
Grateful that the government, way back when, sounds like 1919, had the foresight to preserve the national parks. Fault the U.S. government for the condition it's in now, but back then they recognized that the parks were something special, and they set aside funds and manpower and legislation to protect these things because, had no idea. We've been through a couple national parks, but this was something different.
At Zion?
Yeah, Zion and Bryce were just next level, amazing.
No, absolutely. And this isn't my first time through Zion and Bryce, so it's been nice, though. I don't really remember the first time I went was on a family trip 15 years ago, so it's been really nice to see it now and just really experience it. And what I'm grateful for is absolutely this trip. This trip was something we both really needed. We just came off me passing my last exam and your birthday coming up, and we just both were we just need to get out of town. And being in nature has been so therapeutic. I was recovering from COVID in the last month, and I can just feel my body, my lungs, everything is just taking in this fresh air. It's so true. Nature is the best medicine. And so this trip alone, I just feel so refreshed, so rejuvenated. I'm so grateful. It all worked out. Everything. We've had amazing weather. I mean, it did snow the first day, and we've just had an overall amazing experience. Every day we've just killed it with our hikes, the weather, everything we've experienced, the people around us. So yeah, I'm really grateful for this trip, and our place that we're staying at is amazing too. Because podcasting is not a visual medium, a way to share, I want to describe to the listeners kind of where we are recording right now, because this is one of probably the cooler Airbnbs we've stayed in, I would say. And I'll definitely post a photo of where we're recording from right now. But to give you guys just kind of a visual idea is we are staying in a treetop cabin. It's 2 stories. We are on the 2nd story right now, and sitting on our king bed, and above us is a huge 3-foot by 3-foot skylight, and which has been amazing. Jesse, you said you saw a shooting star last night, which is super cool. And we are looking out. If I turn around towards the right, we have 3 huge windows that look upon the valley that we're staying in. So we're actually staying in Orderville, Utah, which is about 40 minutes from Zion and about an hour from Bryce Canyon. So I picked this location. This was a surprise trip for Jesse. This location was nice because we were halfway between the 2 parks, and I wasn't sure which ones we'd gravitate towards, so that way we had more options, rather than, I think next time when we come, we've already been talking about we'd stay in Zion closer to the park, because it is 40 minutes in the morning to get to the park, 40 minutes out, parking, taking the shuttle in, which we'll get into more detail about that. But so we're staying in Orderville. This cabin, all wood, interior, walls, ceiling, banisters, and just stunning view. Really stunning view. And I think our favorite spot, which I'll provide a link in the show notes too for our Airbnb, but one of our favorite spots right down the street from us is, where we've eaten every single night, is Archie's Food to Die For food truck, and it has been amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely to die for food. Literally.
Yeah. Like they make, and since I have I'm lactose intolerant, I've asked them to make their Philly cheesesteak without cheese, without butter on the buns, and the steak has been chef's kiss. So, yeah.
So we got here on a Wednesday afternoon, and we did a little bit of research, obviously before the trip, and realized that we needed a permit for a specific hike in Zion called Angel's Landing. And so since we weren't really sure, and the permit was as a lottery-based system where you apply the day before, and then you get an email at 2 p.m. the day before with the results. So we applied for that, thinking that, well, if we didn't get the permit on Thursday, we would get it on a subsequent day. But we actually got the permit first day, so that was our first day hike. And wow, what an amazing ascent. So it was a 1,488 foot ascent from the valley floor where we started, and just an absolute amazing hike. And it was a hike. It was not a walk. It was an absolute hike.
No, it was absolutely incredible. I'm just looking up meters for everybody, for all my non-US listeners. That hike was 427 meters of an ascent, so very high. That's about 1,400 feet. Absolutely amazing. This is one of the trips I was a little nervous as far as difficulty is. I especially thought I'd get more hiking in the month of October, but I was studying, I was really sick. So I was definitely a little bit more nervous about where would I be as far as, because just to give an idea, as you and I, we hike at home. We've done 9-mile hikes, 10-mile hikes. We like hiking. We have the hiking gear, everything. But coming up on this trip, I was definitely worried about the condition I'm in. Again, I mentioned recovering from COVID, and I could just feel it in my lungs. So I was a little hesitant at the beginning of this hike, but I brought my ski poles as poles, just so I knew I'd have something to lean on if I needed to. And so we were hiking up, which the beginning it's definitely it's a switchback, like a gentle switchback. So you're going up and you're switching back up to a certain point, and then we thought we were done with switchbacks, and I spoke too soon, and I thought, you know what? Oh, these switchbacks are killing me. And I look up, and there is an intense, maybe 100 foot, easily, huge incline that it's just switchback stairs. So it's like a zigzag. It's like a mountaintop zigzag is what a switchback is.
Yeah, you're going about 20 feet before each switchback. So just to give you an example, like to go 100 feet up in 20 feet increments, like it was a lot of switchbacks. You can only go about 20 feet, then you change direction, go back, another 20 feet, change direction. It was a lot. No,
it absolutely was. And I think I was a little nervous, but we went in with the mindset is we can turn around at any time. It's okay. We've got 2 more full days here. And I think that made me feel better too. But I pushed through and I felt amazing. Like my lungs, everything, my heart rate. I felt like we were going at a good pace. It was a little cooler too. Because the one thing is we woke up to 4 inches of snow at our Airbnb that morning. So we weren't even sure what the conditions would be in Zion in the canyon itself. And it was it was cooler, I would say. It was on the cooler for sure. It was,
it was like mid-20s when we left our Airbnb.
Yeah.
And it was mid-30s when we got into Zion Park. And we were kind of wondering because all the way there, like Katerina said, it was about a 40-minute drive. So all the way there, it's snowing. Right up until we got into Zion, and then the snow stopped. And Zion itself was fairly snow-free, and we kind of attributed that to there was just so much rock face that the thermal mass there was so significant that it actually warmed the air. And we noticed that coming into the park, the air was warmer. So when we started our hike, there wasn't any snow when we started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, so it was about, I just converted again, Fahrenheit. So we started about 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about -6 Celsius, just to give an idea. So it was fairly cold, something we from California don't experience very often. And as we
Southern California.
Yeah, anyway. Southern California especially, yeah. And so we definitely were in for a surprise with the cold, but we dressed layers. But by the time we got to the top, I mean, I was taking layers off, so that felt fine.
Yeah, and as we made our ascent, like it was fairly manicured trails, which is what we when we say hike at home, like most of our hikes at home are manicured trails. Like you're walking. You're really just using your feet and your legs, but about half of the way up, maybe 3/4 of the way up through Angel's Landing, it turns from a walk to an actual hike. Like you're using 3 points of contact. You have to use your hands as you're climbing up boulders, and then the last bit of the ascent, last half an hour or so, is on sheer rock faces, and there's chain that's bolted to the side of the mountain that you have to hold on to. Like it's literally, you take one wrong step and it's not, no kidding, it's a sheer drop. You absolutely would not survive.
No, and that's why they started doing the permit system. Is during COVID, once people weren't able to travel, a lot of people discovered the national parks, and we can travel to the national parks. And I guess this specific hike, there were just people like waiting, just tons of people. It got too dangerous, so that's why they now have installed the permit, where you have a lottery, you have to apply, and there's only so many amount of people that can go, which we had, I think, throughout an amazing group of people. Even once we got to Angel's Landing, which Angel's Landing has a stunning view of the entire canyon to, I believe that would be like the south and the north.
Mm-hmm.
And so absolutely stunning. So definitely worth checking out Angel's Landing. So we did that our first day.
Yeah, so we went up to Angel's Landing. We got to a point where we thought was fairly much the end. And it was a little plateau. We had lunch. We brought packed in lunch with us and had lunch. And then we noticed that there were still a handful of people like going around the bend of this one rock face. And we're like, well, that's interesting. And never saw anybody come back. And we're like, wow, it must be a very scenic spot to have people just go around this little corner and not come back. And so we finished up with lunch when we saw 3 condors resting on a spiral just below our position. Got some good, cool pictures with them. And so we said, let's go around this corner. We went around the corner and we saw the rest of the ascent, which was probably another 200 feet or so, 200, 300 feet, and straight up. This is more cliff face with chain. And as we got to the top, we finally made it where we could see the entire valley. The sun broke loose of the clouds, and we had this moment of about a 10-15 minute moment of just pure sunshine. We undid our jackets, we're taking hats off, gloves off, we're taking pictures, we're chatting with other hikers from all around the world. And then we kind of look off into the distance and we see a little bit of not a storm coming in, but definitely a cloud system coming in. And so we stop and we're kind of gauging the wind, and we notice a little bit of sleet coming down. We're like, all right, well, let's start making our way down. As we start making our way down, the sleet got heavier and heavier. And so we had to button back up, hats went back on, gloves went back on, and it was just perfect timing. We got through some of the more difficult parts of the terrain, back down to the manicured trails, and then that's when just huge snowflakes just started falling from the sky, and we just had this surreal moment of winding our way through these canyons, huge pine trees everywhere, and it wasn't windy anymore, and these huge gentle fall of snowflakes coming in was just really a very amazing moment.
That was very, like I was saying, it's very fairy tale-like. Mm-hmm. It was perfect, right straight out of a movie. Absolutely gorgeous. So first day, Angel's Landing was absolutely amazing. We were really happy with that. And then we just headed back to the cabin and got some Archie's food, and
yep,
super good. And also a thing to note in Zion is from spring to fall, which sounds like it's March-ish to end of November, you have to take a shuttle in to the exact Zion.
Even the wind shakes this place.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it's really windy. So taking shuttles into Zion, you have to park at the visitor center before you can get in because they really want to minimize the traffic. And we heard from our one shuttle driver today is once they open those gates, it's bumper to bumper, just cars throughout the valley. So the shuttle system is really cool. It's multiple stops. Shuttles run every, I don't know, 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, easily.
Very easily. So there's constantly shuttles you can take. Visitor center parking is free once you're in the park. Also, I think to get into the Zion Park, it was $35. And we did a national park pass because we were also going to Bryce, which was $30 entrance, and a full national. Oh, it was 35? Yeah, okay. It was 35. Oh, it was 35 to both, yeah. And we did a full national park pass since we've been going in and out of parks, and that was $80. Yeah, $80. So definitely look at your options.
Yeah, it's $80 annually.
Annually,
so
yeah.
they punch it. It's like we're in November, so they punched it for November, and we have a few national parks around us, so we definitely are going to take advantage of that.
Yeah. So that's really, yeah. So there's definitely options to getting in through the park. And then day 2, we decided to venture out to Bryce Canyon. And that was from Orderville, about an hour drive through a beautiful landscape. It snowed a little bit that morning. Did it? No, it didn't.
It had stopped snowing that night, but the roads were iced over.
The roads were definitely iced over. It was definitely colder. The sun was out, but it wasn't warm enough. We got to Bryce Canyon, and it was a little touch and go for me for driving. We were driving on snow/ice. So I kept it very slow.
Yeah, but before we left the cabin, Katerina looked up Bryce Canyon weather conditions, and it was like 19. And for a moment I thought, like, because I'm not great at Fahrenheit to Celsius conversion, so I was like, oh, why is your phone all of a sudden in Celsius? It's like, obviously it's not 19 degrees Fahrenheit where we're going, but no, it was 19, not including the wind chill, which was then felt like 7 degrees, right?
Yeah, 19 Fahrenheit is about -7 Celsius.
Yeah.
So
it was cold.
It was very cold.
It was a cold start to that trip.
But it was sunny, which you and I both, we can tell on our faces, definitely got a lot of color on our trip to Bryce because, so Bryce Canyon, yeah, it's about an hour and a half, 40-minute drive from Zion if you're leaving Zion. And it is an absolutely stunning, beautiful canyon, very different landscape. And we were very fortunate to have not seen it while it was snowing, but the day after, blue skies, not a cloud in the sky, and a light dusting throughout the whole canyon. And we did a 3-mile loop, which was starting at Sunset Point, and then down into the canyon, through Queen's Garden, and then back up to Sunrise Point. It's about a 3.5-mile hike. So I'm going to actually look up what that is in 6 kilometers. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was much more manicured.
Yeah.
So although we definitely, if you're going to go in the wintertime, we definitely recommend having walking poles because although the trails are very manicured, you're not using arms and feet, but it is slick with ice, and so having walking poles really helped on some of the steeper parts of the walk. But yeah, beautiful. Like, we started in all rockscape, and down in the canyon, it's pine trees and like a forest area. Didn't see as much wildlife there. Saw a lot of tracks, bird and animal. We think we saw a ring-tailed cat tracks. Definitely saw bird and rabbit. So, but didn't see a lot of the actual wildlife. But it's a very much of a different landscape where Zion is a lot of granite and hard, rock scapes, and Bryce Canyon is more of a clay scape. And so I think we saw a sign that there's about 4 feet of erosion every century. So you can see where that'd be the case. Like, it's a much, much softer facade to the canyon than like Zion. Zion's very hard and impenetrable, and Bryce was much softer.
No, and it was nice. We had an epic day on Thursday in Zion with Angel's Landing, and so coming to Bryce, it was like, oh, this is cool, this is different, but coming off such an epic day with amazing weather, and it was different. It was good, but it was different.
It was much more casual.
Yeah, much more casual.
I don't want to I don't want to dramatize like Angel's Landing, but it's no kidding. Like go there, like small children cannot take that hike. It's literally like you can step off into nothingness in Angel's Landing, where Bryce Canyon is very much more. Yeah, I mean, if you went off the trail, you could slide down something. You'd probably get scuffed up, bruised up a little bit, but you're not going to die. It was way more casual. Like, it's less attention being paid to your footing and where your next handhold is and, like, what the landscape is from a safety perspective. It was way more of just, like, enjoying the moment, casually looking around, feeling the sunshine. It was definitely a more low key experience.
No, absolutely. And I think that was nice. Like, we definitely needed that because, again, we're not in, like, the most amazing shape right now. That was, like, we're in good shape, but for us, I wished I had been in better shape coming up to this trip, because I do feel, though, that I've gained strength. Like, I've noticed definition in my legs even over the past, like, 2 days. It's been really nice, but I just feel like, because I barely did a yoga flow just the other week as far as my endurance, my cardio. So I feel like we're in good shape for what I thought we'd be in. And I think we did all the hikes very well. And so coming off of Zion and Bryce, we had one extra day, which was today. And we definitely went through various options. From where we are in Orderville, we're about an hour 40 to 2 hours from the Grand Canyon. It's definitely an option we thought about. We would hit the north rim, the northern part of the Grand Canyon. We thought about it, but because tomorrow we're headed back home and it's about a 7.5 to 8.5 hour drive back to Southern California, Orange County, we weren't sure we wanted to spend at least 4 hours in the car today. So we definitely threw some ideas around what are some possibilities. We didn't really want to go back to Bryce Canyon. We feel like we saw a majority of it, but Zion has so much more to offer. And so there was one hike we noticed, because when we went back to the gift shop after our hike through Angel's Landing, went back to the gift shop, we wanted to get some, t-shirts or something. Some merch, yeah, some fun stuff to have a memory for this trip. And we noticed everything said, like, I survived Angel's Landing and I survived the hike through the Narrows. And we're like, what is the Narrows? That sounds super interesting. So when we got back to the cabin last night, we started doing research. What does it mean? And the Narrows there's 2 different versions of it. There's a 15.5-mile hike, which is about a 28 to 29 kilometer hike. And then there's a half version of that. And what that hike is, it's at the end of Zion Canyon, so the last shuttle stop. And you essentially hike in, and probably within the first mile, so first maybe 2 kilometers, you then have a river you have to pass through. And for us right now, in very cold weather, it would mean being about, I think we read a lot of the comments right now, especially with the snow falling, where we are with the water levels, is at least up to our thighs, we would be submerged in water. Now, we don't have the gear for that this trip. We could rent gear. We started looking into that, but that required getting up early, making sure we have the right gear, making sure we have the right boots. And as amazing as the hike sounds, because you do go through narrow parts of a canyon, but it does require passing through streams, and we just weren't equipped for that this trip. But we will definitely be we're already kind of in our heads planning, like, when's the next time we could get out here for the Narrows? So it's definitely a hike we can't recommend, but we noticed a lot of people also today, especially Saturday, because we did decide to go back into Zion today. We noticed a lot of people with pants. You can rent pants, waterproof pants. You can rent proper hiking boots. So we saw a lot of people with that. So there's absolutely the possibility of doing the Narrows. We are just going to be a little bit more equipped for it for our next trip and bring in our own gear. That way we don't have to rent and take time to rent, and we can be on that first shuttle. So that's definitely something. The Narrows is another kind of a challenging hike that we'd like to do. But today we kind of kept it simple, and we ended up hiking the Emerald Pools, which there are 3 pools. There's a lower pool, a middle pool, and a high pool. And so we took the hike from the bottom, one of the stops. I can't remember which stop it was. It was the stop at the lodge.
It's a lodge,
yeah. We hiked up to the medium pools, which was nice. There's not much water. I'm assuming we're assuming in the spring. It's, waterfall gushing with lots of water. Then we made it's a nice loop. Up from the bottom, from the base, from the lodge, Up to the medium pools, you can take a lower route, which takes you to the bottom pools, which is obviously right below the medium pools. So you see more of a waterfall scene. It is a little bit more easy, kind of a flat. You're right along the riverbed. There's a river that goes through the Zion Canyon. So it's more of an easy level hike. And part of the moderate to medium hike through to the medium pools, there is a little route you can take up. It's 0.3 miles. So I don't know, give yourself like 10 minutes. It's a dead end at the higher pools. So you're right at the base of the cliffs. You can see the water we saw it more trickling down the side of the face of the cliff. And then there's a pool, and that's the higher pool. So that was kind of cool to see. And you can only imagine like what it's like in the spring when all of the snow is melting and the water's just gushing. So that was really cool. It was a bittersweet hike. We were both, we just had 2 incredible days, but that hike definitely was incredible to see the different vantage points of Zion Canyon. We definitely got a few different glimpses. The sun came out. It's the end of fall, and we got very lucky with the foliage. We have reds, oranges, yellows. The leaves are absolutely stunning up against the green, red, white, kind of black face of the canyon. Absolutely incredible time to go. Yes, we are here in the first week of November. We had a little snow, we had a little rain, we've had sun. It has been an incredible time. And so those were the hikes we had that we would recommend from Zion.
What we like to reference is a mobile app called All Trails. And so like when we're talking about, looking at some of the distances and difficulties, we like to use All Trails because, for instance, you can go on there and look at a specific hike and you can see people posting from today or yesterday. And so like on the Narrows, when we were researching that and deciding if we wanted to take on that travel, we're able to read somebody's comments like, hey, I went on the Narrows today. Yeah, it was about hip high water. So it's really a convenient app to use. And it has the built-in feature to where you can load the trail you're about to go on, and it'll give you progress of time and distance. And like today on the hike for the Emerald Pools, we noticed that it wasn't hyper accurate as far as like when we looked at the route we had already completed, it kind of started zigzagging all over the place. And we were like, well, that's not what we did. But we know that there was probably very limited signal in those areas. But it's a very convenient tool. And if you go on there, just like comparison between Bryce Canyon and Zion. So for instance, like the way we gravitated back to Zion is Bryce Canyon has 42 registered trails on All Trails. Zion has 145 trails, and I mean there's just so much in there. And some of that is like the Emerald Bay, or the Emerald Pools, which is there's 3 different hikes just in that one vicinity. So it's not like there's 145 unique areas, but that just to give you the size of that park, there's so much there. Like we could go back there 5 more times and still not see even half the park. Yeah. So it's like a really, really convenient app. Free, it's a great app, and we really enjoyed using it this trip.
Yeah. And All Trails did not sponsor this episode for legal purposes. I think I need to put that in. But All Trails, if you would like to sponsor us, we would love that. That'd be amazing. So gotta cover my bases. But yeah, no, we use All Trails. It is a fun app, and it definitely helps. We don't have the Pro, so we don't even pay for it actually. But yeah, so those are kind of our Zion and Bryce trails and things we did. And then just to kind of, if you are with a group and you don't feel like hiking, right around the Zion Visitor Center, the cute little shopping center, and they have a really fun brewery called the Zion Canyon Brew Pub, and we are both there on Thursday after our Angels Landing hike, and we were there again today after our Emerald Pool hike, and they have very good fries. They have a little live-in cat who likes to sleep in the bushes and will take your chicken wings and eat them right in front of you. So
I post that picture too.
Yeah, I will post that picture too.
My highest point, figuratively and literally, was Angel's Landing. Like it was our first hike only because we needed the permits. We're like, well, let's apply for it right away. And it's kind of like bittersweet in that we went there on a Thursday, which was awesome because there was probably less people than on a weekend. And we had just the absolute best weather for that hike. It was clear all the way going up. It didn't start snowing until our way down. We had some amazing people. We met a Canadian volunteer firefighter from Kodiak, Alaska. He had a great energy about him and took a bunch of pictures of us and just met, just different people. And you see there was different skill levels there. There was people who had, people who were literally, I mean, I'm not kidding, hugging the cliff face because it is very intimidating to be that high up and that, near the face. And then met people who were like very confident. So that was probably my high point of the trip. It was just such an amazing view. And it was physically challenging, mentally challenging. It was very rewarding. It was just amazing. I bought a Angel's Landing hat. I bought a Angel's Landing patch for my pack. Like it was the best.
That's probably one of my favorite hikes I've ever done of all time. So Angel's Landing is definitely my high. I would highly recommend it if you are in Zion. Do Angel's Landing. Apply for the permit. If you're here for multiple days, just apply for it the day before your first day. And if you get it, you get it. Obviously, there's more popular times of the year to come. We had amazing weather. Would highly recommend coming in the fall or probably the spring because you don't have that heat. But overall, absolutely amazing time. And also, if you are in Orderville, definitely check out Archie's food truck. I know we're watching the clock because they close at 6 o'clock, and yesterday we were 4 minutes shy of 6 and we ended up sprinting down to make sure we got our dinner. Well, Jesse, thank you so much for coming on this episode. I've been watching the clock to make sure we don't miss Archie's.
We got plenty of time, my love. We got an hour and 40 minutes before they close. I think we're going to get there.
We'll get there, But thank you so much for coming on and sharing this trip. Happy birthday. I hope you love this trip. Did you enjoy this trip?
I did enjoy this trip very much.
Good. I'm glad. This Airbnb, and I'll provide a link in the show notes for all our hikes, what we did each day, where our Airbnb was, and what we highly recommend. And if you like this episode, please give it a heart or thumbs up and click the follow button so you can stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can also follow me on Instagram @FromTheHoneycomb Podcast. Thank you so much, and see you next Friday.